Video games have had a tumultuous time to be recognized as serious art. Many people out there still claim them that it is just cheap entertainment designed to rot the minds of children and get them to spend money. While that may be true for most mobile games today, there are still some amazing works out there with deftly crafted stories featuring intricate characters and deep themes running throughout, to tell stories in a way that puts you right in the center. Now, not everyone has the time or patience to sink 20 or more hours into a video game, but still want to know the stories for themselves. Luckily, some of these games lend themselves perfectly to being adapted onto modern screens. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. At no cost to you, every new sub helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 announced video game film adaptations to get excited about. Number 1. Pokemon Detective Pikachu 2. If you haven't seen the first film, it was a delightful little detective story set in the world of Pokemon, based on the handheld Detective Pikachu game series. While there are plenty of moments in the film that were a bit off-putting, it was a genuine treat to finally see our favorite little pocket monsters in the flesh, so to speak. So to hear they are doing a sequel that will continue the story with the same characters makes me wonder what the big case and twist will be. As spoilers for those who haven't seen part 1, but at the end, Ryan Reynolds got his human body back, and Pikachu went back to being himself. So unless they retread the same premise over, maybe this time having Tim switch bodies with Pikachu and go on a quest of shenanigans to find a way to switch back, I can't really see how Pikachu becomes a detective in this one. One thing though I'd like to see some more of regardless of storyline is more Pokemon battles. I want to see more appearances of our favorite critters dishing out damage with their unique abilities in full spectacle, something that was sort of lacking with the first film. And maybe a cameo appearance from Red or Ash Ketchum, just doing his thing to become the world's greatest Pokemon trainer, all while still owing Misty a brand new bike. No release date has been given yet, but it's in development, and all the original cast is supposedly returning, so I'm sure we'll hear something about it soon. Number 2. Ghost of Tsushima. With audiences high off the success of the Shogun series, now is the perfect time to tell more incredible sprawl tales of Japanese history. Taking place in 1274, during the invasion of the Mongol fleet, it does stray from real history somewhat, but overall captures the turmoil of the decades-long wars that ravaged Japan. We follow Jin Sakai, who grows up under the watchful eye of his uncle, Lord Shimura, after the untimely death of his own parents, and is raised to be heir as Shimura has no children of his own. Suddenly, the island of Tsushima is invaded by these strange foreign warriors, and Shimura calls his banners, riding to the beaches to fight them off. Almost every major samurai family is absolutely massacred in this initial battle. Even Jin is left for dead on the beach, surviving only through luck as a thief named Yuna spots him and heals him back into fighting shape. Weeks have gone by as the Mongols have spread their forces all over the island, and they are holding Lord Shimura captive to try and force the other lords to bow down. From this moment on, Jin must gather allies and strategically cause disruption and chaos throughout the land to throw the Mongol leader Kutan Khan off balance and take back the land. This could be an epic, dramatic, and bloody series if done well, spread over multiple seasons as there are enough characters and circumstances to dive into. Hopefully they chose this route rather than trying to squash such a sprawling story into a 2-hour action film. All we know so far is that it's rumored to star Daisuke Tsuji and the voice and motion caption actor behind Jin, and possibly Hiroki Sanada of Shogun fame. Look for the trailer sometime in 2025, as the film is listed to officially be in production as of April. Number 3, Death Stranding. As with many entries on this list, this is another game with heavy lore and a sprawling journey that takes hours upon hours to complete. The story is pretty complicated. Set in an apocalyptic version of the United States, a cataclysmic event known as Death Stranding occurred, and suddenly the world was flooded with dangers such as BTs, invisible entities originating from a dimension called the Beach, and Timefall, a perpetual storm that if it touches you, causes time to distort and speed up, like ultra-fast necrosis. If someone dies, their bodies must immediately be burned and disposed of properly, because if the BTs get their hands on it and consume it, they detonate, causing what is known as a void out. What remains of humanity have now holed up in small colonies known as knot cities, and special couriers travel across the wastelands to deliver much needed items and supplies. Enter Sam Porter Bridges, a freelance courier with a history of successful deliveries of sensitive materials. Together with his bridge baby Lou, and a strange affliction known as Dooms, he is accidentally pulled into the plot to reunite the world and stop a chaotic madman after arriving to Central Knot City and learning of his mother's condition, who just happens to be the current president. There's so much more to dive into, a perfect series for sci-fi buffs and emergent philosophers, and would lend itself perfectly to the streaming series format as more and more secrets are unveiled. However, it seems A24 is determined into turning this into a film, possibly film franchise, so we'll see how it turns out. No release date as of the time of this writing, but hopefully a trailer will drop alongside with the release of the sequel game. Number 4, Metal Gear Solid. I gotta start with saying this is one of my all-time favorite video games ever. I mean, I grew up with the NES and such, but I can clearly remember when I got the demo disc from official PlayStation magazine, and they had that playable section from the first section of the game. I was instantly hooked. Sneaking around, snapping necks, getting into firefights, it was glorious. By today's standards, sure, you were restricted to a kind of top-down view and had limited actions, but it broke the mold for its time in the action spy genre. The same can be said for the cinematic story that is told throughout the game. No longer was it dumbed down for young children. Between this game, Resident Evil, and Silent Hill, studios were finally acknowledging older gamers with a real adult mystery without compromising the fun gameplay. Now, MGS isn't the first in the series. Those released on the Nintendo system, but the difference between those games and MGS is like having a Pee-wee football team go up against a veteran Super Bowl champion. This game's story follows Solid Snake, an operative part of a special government unit called Foxhound, and he's being sent in to stop a terrorist group made of ex-members of this unit at a secret government testing facility named Shadow Moses Island, far north in the Alaskan Ice Plains. It's kind of like James Bond GoldenEye, but if Tom Clancy had written it. As he makes his way through it, he uncovers a multi-government conspiracy, over-the-top villains, and eventually a giant mecha walking battle tank that can launch nukes from a railgun, which makes them invisible to radar because they would be fired using electromagnetics rather than fuel. It's rumored that Oscar Isaac of Dune and Moon Knight fame will be playing the titular hero. But again, I think they're making a mistake. Not only trying to cram it into a single film, but also not starting from the beginning of the series. This would lend itself perfectly to a streaming series format, especially on a platform like Max or MGM Plus. But I guess we'll find out when it releases in 2026.
Hey folks, sorry to interrupt, but we just launched our very own merch store at fatninja.shop. We sell everything from t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more, so we would greatly appreciate it if you checked it out. All the proceeds go to our future projects, so it helps us make any kind of movies and short films that we want to make in the future. So if you got time, check out fatninja.shop. Thanks again, and back to the video.
Number 5, Mega Man. Okay, so technically, there have been live-action Mega Man films already released. 2 fan-made ones and 1 indie-produced one that went straight to DVD. I believe the Sci-Fi Channel was behind it, and yes, all of them were terrible, if not at least game-accurate, surprisingly enough. Now, if you've never heard of or even played Mega Man, you know that it's a pretty simple story. The little blue bomber, who's half robot, half human kid, is built to be a scientist who wants to stop another scientist, Dr. Wily, from taking over the world with his robots. Not only is Dr. Wily taking over cities, but he's also steadily replacing living things by transforming them into robots themselves, like the birds and the fish and the deer and so forth. Seems like a pretty simple idea, and aside from translating the odd visual style to a more realistic looking live action film, it shouldn't be too hard to screw up, right? Well, enter Netflix, the platform that buys all sorts of Japanese properties and somehow delivers us an accurate but still lacking adaptation of those properties, pretty much consistently. Cowboy Bebop, Bleach, One Piece, etc. All of those shows aren't terrible by any means, but they're also not great and somehow miss the magic of the source material. So here's hoping they manage to pull it off against all odds. It's rumored to be based on the short-lived anime OVA series, rather than any specific game, but not many other details have been released. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the coming year. Number 6, Tomb Raider. First, there was the Angelina Jolie films, with their heightened, over-the-top action scenes, and pretty much just an excuse to stick her in some booty shorts and a skin-tight top. Well, it did fit the current era of Tomb Raider games. Once Crystal Dynamics reinvented the property, those first 2 entries no longer represented the franchise well. So they rebooted it with Alicia Vikander. And while the film remained relatively close to the new trilogy storyline, it was just boring. Vikander felt flat as Lara Croft, and the rest of the film was a by-the-numbers treasure hunt film that just had no stakes to it. Kind of like Sony's Uncharted film. So it seems they are once again rebooting it, and once again basing it on the Crystal Dynamics trilogy. This time in a TV series format titled Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. 2 things to note though, this won't be a live action. Instead, it will be animated by the same people behind Blue Eye Samurai. And secondly, it will star Hayley Atwell as Lara Croft herself, which I think is a fantastic choice. It's said it will release on Amazon Prime sometime in the last half of 2024, and will take place directly after the events of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So, if you've played the new trilogy, this could be exciting news for you. Make sure to keep an eye out for a trailer release. will probably drop sometime during the summer months. Number 7, Alan Wake. Alan Wake is pretty much a film inside a game already. For those who've played it know exactly what I mean by that. It has so many influences too from popular film and television media, like Stephen King adaptations, The Twilight Zone, The X-Files, and even Twin Peaks. For those unfamiliar with the franchise, Alan Wake is a best-selling crime fiction author from New York City, who, like many writers, experiences a temporary blockage of creativity. So he and his wife Alice traveled to a small remote mountain town called Bright Falls. Almost immediately upon entering this place, strange things begin to happen. Shadowy figures want to kill him, the people are kind of hiding some dark secret, and things he wrote in his manuscript for his upcoming book are eerily coming true. Now, I heavily recommend playing these games for yourself. The first one was remastered for modern consoles, and the sequel was just released this year, and both are outstanding mysteries for you to solve. What's kind of cool is that in the games, they are broken down like episodes of a TV show. And guess what? So is the live action adaptation, which will also be a limited run series for AMC+. The same network that brought you shows like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So I have high hopes for this mind-bending series to slither its way onto our televisions and leave quite the impression. No release date has been given, but it is in production, so expect to hear something possibly by the end of the year. Number 8, BioShock. The live-action adaptation of this amazing game series has been in development hell for over 10 years. From the likes of Peter Jackson helming a possible trilogy, then passing it on to Guillermo del Toro, and now picked up by Netflix to be helmed by Francis Lawrence, there still isn't too much information about whether or not this will be a multi-film franchise, or a streaming series, or just a singular film. The director does promise it will be faithful to the first game and straightforward for what it's worth. But I feel like they all promised that, so it remains to be seen. While I am excited for it, there's one thing that can't be replicated by a film version of the story, unfortunately. And that's the involvement of you, the audience. When playing the game, you are continuously tasked with doing things to advance the story. Sometimes some of these things are monstrous and cruel in nature, and yet, would you kindly do them? This turns out to be a keen phrase in your indoctrination, as you've been to Rapture before, the city beneath the sea with no morality, and were brainwashed and programmed to respond to certain commands and events to help further the machinations of a man named Frank Fontaine, who has beef with Andrew Ryan, the founder of the city itself. It could still work as a twist reveal in the show, but it just has way more of an impact when it's you who feels like you were tricked into being a pawn in someone else's deranged scheme. This strike last year kind of put a speed bump in the road for this production, but Netflix has released a statement they are back on track and are aiming for a 2025 release date. So keep an eye out for this one. Number 9, Gears of War. Man, if only they would have gotten their shit together and made this film back in 2010. They could have used all the great 80s action stars to fill out this squad, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Willis, Lester Spate, Bolo Yoon, and more. But like the BioShock property, this has also been trapped in production hell. And once again, here comes Netflix to the rescue, as they announced back in 2022 that they are going to develop a franchise of films based on all the games, possibly casting other new action hero faces like The Rock, John Cena, and Chris Hemsworth. The story is pretty strong. It takes place on a planet called Sarah, where they mine something deep in the ground called emulsion. Wars have broken out over this and various other societal issues. And eventually, a kind of evolution happened to the slave race they used to mine the substance. And they revolted, becoming the locust horde, serving a human locust queen hybrid. One day, this massive army erupted from underneath the ground into all the major cities, which they call Emergence Day, and billions of lives were lost. Enter the COG, the Coalition of Organized Governments, Sarah's last hope to stop their extinction. Well, things aren't going so great for them, so the government overseers demand the release of Marcus Finks, a veteran of the Pendulum Wars prior to Emergence Day, who was sentenced to life in prison for going against orders. There's not too many twists and turns throughout the series. You do learn a bit about Marcus's family origins and whatnot, but otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward, meaty, muscular, heavy action-packed, mutant blasting gore fest, complete with chainsaw bayonets and a laser beam that can be called down from orbital satellites. Like Predator, but on steroids. I hope they get this one right, because I just want to switch off my brain and watch 120 minutes of beefy dudes quipping one-liners as they tear through the ranks of enemy soldiers. But it is Netflix, and I feel like it will be toned down to look cheap. So I guess we will find out when it drops sometime in 2025. Number 10, Half-Life. Most of us players are still waiting for the third game to release. But did you know that Half-Life film has been in development since 2002? That's over 20 years ago. Now, the franchise is in the hands of J.J. Abrams, as well as another major Valve property, Portal. But just like Half-Life 3, there are scarcely any details out there about the production, except for a few photos of possible sets being constructed, the suit, and Abrams' assurance that it's in the top of his catalog. For those of you who have never had the pleasure of playing the game, Gordon is a scientist who works at a research facility called Black Mesa, and they're working on teleportation there, amongst other things. Gordon has been getting visits from a strange man who appears to be talking to him from beyond time and space. Well, one day, while testing the transporter, shit goes wrong, as it does, and portals are opened up all over, letting in tons of alien creatures. Some are friendly, like the Vortigaunts, and some are vicious little fuckers, like the head crabs, who basically eat your skull, replace your head with themselves, and turn you into a zombie puppet. So Gordon must escape, find a way to send these things back to their own dimension, and save as many of his friends along the way as he can. There is just too much going on though for this to be a singular film, so I'm hoping that as more details come out, it will be revealed to be a streaming series, especially given Abrams' ties to HBO. So a high budget Max offering could be fantastic, like The Last of Us. However, as I mentioned before, details are scant, so if we learn anything more about it, we'll be sure to make another video and spewing out all the details we learn. Thanks for checking out the video. What adaptations are you looking forward to the most? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, links below. Make sure to check out our very own merch store as well, located at fatninja.shop. All proceeds go towards our future film projects, so we'd greatly appreciate it. I've been your host, Jamie. See you in the arcades.